Good morning, everybody. I'm being very still. Do you know why? I am a hat peddler. Great story called Caps for Sale. I wonder if anybody knows this book. It's around 70 or a bit more years old actually, and a Russian-American author wrote the story. She was also a painter. She was a very famous lady, and she wrote this story based on an old folk tale, and it's called Caps for Sale. So I can hardly move my head. Good morning to everybody. Hope you had a great day yesterday. Let's read this story. Such a great story. I won't be able to do any actions because these caps will fall off my head. Caps for sale. Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler, carrying wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First, he had on his own checked cap, then a bunch of grey caps, then a bunch of brown caps, then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight, so as not to upset his caps. As he went along, he called, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!" One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street calling, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!" But nobody wanted any caps that morning. Nobody wanted even a red cap. He began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch. "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he, and he walked out of town, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. He walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," thought he, and he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk, so as not to disturb the caps on his head. Then he put up his hand to feel if they were straight. First his own checked cap, then the grey caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. They were all there. So he went to sleep. He slept for a long time. When he woke up, he was refreshed and rested. That's a good feeling, isn't it, to feel refreshed and rested, especially after a good night's sleep. But before standing up, he felt with his hand to make sure his caps were in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him, no caps. He looked to the left of him, no caps. He looked in back of him, no caps. He looked behind the tree, no caps. Then he looked up into the tree, and what do you think he saw? On every branch sat a monkey. On every monkey was a grey or a brown or a blue or a red cap. Those cheeky monkeys. The peddler looked at the monkeys. The monkeys looked at the peddler. He didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them. "You monkeys, you," he said, shaking a finger at them. "You give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." This made the peddler angry, so he shook both hands at them and said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook both their hands back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." Now he felt quite angry. He stamped his foot and he said, "You monkeys, you better give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, "Tss, tss." By this time, the peddler was really very angry. He stamped both his feet and shouted, "You monkeys, you must give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped both their feet back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss." At last, he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap, threw it on the ground, and began to walk away. What do you think the monkeys are going to do? But then each monkey pulled off his cap. And all the grey caps, and all the brown caps, and all the blue caps, and all the red caps came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own checked cap, then the grey caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps, on the very top. And slowly, slowly, he walked back to town calling, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!" And that's the end of that story. So a very old story based on a folk tale, as many stories actually are. I was reading about Julia Donaldson the other day, who wrote The Gruffalo and Squash and a Squeeze, and she based a Squash and a Squeeze on an old Jewish tale, and she actually based The Gruffalo on an old Chinese tale about a little girl who is met with a tiger, and she tries to convince the tiger with all sorts of words and things so the tiger doesn't eat her. And that's where Julia Donaldson was inspired for the story of the Gruffalo. So it's interesting, we're all inspired by different things, and like David Walliams was inspired by Roald Dahl. I wonder who inspires you? Lots of people inspire me. I'm inspired by anyone that really tries hard and puts lots of effort into their things, trying to be creative, whether it's with Lego, whether it's with words, whether it's reading or writing, whatever it is. Something inspires you to want to do it or to get better, and putting effort into things, that's always a great thing. Remember Matilda, even in the story, Roald Dahl always talks about Matilda practicing and practicing her special powers so she gets better and better and better. That's a really good lesson in our life, isn't it? So I hope you enjoyed that story and me reading that story.